Welcome to the Blueprint Podcast, where the blueprint to understanding a new and unified world is in our shifting consciousness.
Hey everyone, thank you for joining me here on the Blueprint Podcast. I hope that you're having the most amazing day. Okay, so this week we want to talk about self-sabotaging practices. It's definitely the root, I feel, in self-actualization, because when we can understand how we work at such a deep level, then your ability to be seen in the world, to have mastery in who you are and what you choose to do here, it makes it so much easier. And so there's just a simple flow that happens. So we're going to talk about breaking down these walls of sabotaging. Now, there's lots of different types of sabotage, self-sabotage, and you can look those up on Google if you like. But I want to talk about the ones that lead you to success, because in 2024, literally all the energies of the universe are really pushing us for success because of the new earth frequencies, the new earth mentalities, like getting rid of all lack and getting rid of those kinds of things, even though we have more people probably struggling in the world financially, emotionally, mentally, physically than we ever have before. And this is the way the universe of duality works, right? Is there's, it's being seen. What needs to transform becomes larger and larger and larger so that we can see it in every area of our life. And so I really want us to dive deeper into this today. So breaking down the walls, like how do you recognize your own self-sabotaging practices? Do you recognize them, right? Like what causes your hindrance to success, to all the abundances of the world, of the universe? How do you recognize them? And they're very subtle, self-sabotaging practices are very, very subtle. For example, a podcast not being heard or seen. Like I do both of them. I do the video to put on YouTube, and I do the voice just for podcasting. So, if I didn't want to do the video, then it would make a real boring, video for YouTube, right? Or, for Instagram. And so, that could be a huge self-sabotaging practice, like not being willing or not feeling comfortable, not being able to speak my own voice, really monitoring the words that I use to fit in, that would be a self-sabotaging practice for me. So when we're diving into these practices, these self-sabotaging practices, we have to look at the root, like what is the origin of self-sabotaging behaviors? Most generally, throughout my work in the psychology world, it's been traumas, things that we have experienced throughout our life that have created a traumatic effect in our psyche, and the way that we think, and the way that we feel, and the way that we practice, and the way that we behave, right, in our behaviors. And these traumas or these experiences that have sort of imprinted something within you, some sort of energy block or some sort of way to believe in yourself, they're generally rooted in fear, like fear of not fitting in, for example, fear of being seen, because you were told by, a caretaker when you were younger that you're supposed to be seen, you can be seen but not heard, right? That creates a fear within you. Like these past experiences become limiting beliefs about who we are and about how we can represent ourselves in the world. So there's a whole psychological landscape that needs to be dove into when we're looking for the root. And generally the root it's in childhood, but it can be in adulthood for sure. Post-traumatic stress disorders from having extreme experiences in your adult life can create can create these rooting kinds of sabotaging behaviors. So one thing that you can do is look out for your patterns or things that trigger you. I'm working with my team right now about some triggers about goals for 2024. And the word goal is a huge trigger for people. Like it's like we have failure around that. And we have fear of setting goals and then disappointing ourselves, because we don't follow through. But so the word goal is the trigger, but what's the real root here? Disappointing yourself, abandoning yourself, having thoughts or experiences where you've literally not fallen through or not followed through in your life, and that creates a pattern. And that's what happens when we create these behaviors, these self-sabotaging behaviors, is they become patterns. So how do we overcome them? Well, it requires self-compassion, self-love, decision making to overcome them. And how can you actually, what can you do? This is where the how comes in, right? What can you do that creates a resiliency in you, that creates a confidence? When we have success, we become more confident. So what kinds of triggers, like looking at those triggers and saying, okay, well, what can I do that's maybe opposite of that will actually help me build resistance and confidence to overcome that? And then, maybe the follow through changes. Maybe the goals that you set in the past weren't really your goals. Maybe they were someone else's goals. We do that a lot as humans. We take someone else's goal and say, oh, I want that goal. Like at the beginning of every year, there's a big push for becoming healthy, right? Big, giant push for becoming healthy. Create exercise goals and food goals and, all the things. But is that really your goal? Is that really, really your goal? When we take on someone else's goal, or we take on the programming and pretend like it's useful for us, we're going to sabotage ourselves. I mean, because we're going to look for ways to get out of it. That's just how we work. All right. Another thing is to rewrite the narrative. Like, honestly, rewrite your story. If wellness, health and wellness is not your goal at the beginning of every single year, then stop taking that on. Ask yourself, really, what is it that you really desire? What is it that you really, really desire? Maybe it's to just stop eating sugar, and that becomes your health goal. Or maybe it's, to go out and explore the world more. Maybe it's to have adventure more. We deny ourselves of the adventure all the time. And adventures do not have to cost a fortune. Going out and walking in the woods, or taking borrowing someone's kayak and going for a kayak. It can be anything. It can be just, creating a new relationship with someone, meeting someone new, saying hello to someone at the coffee shop. And you're like, hey, how's it going today? And you really start a meaningful conversation. That can be an adventure for some of us, especially if we're introverts. Another thing to really pay attention to with self-sabotage is, how do you love yourself? Cultivating that self-love, that confidence, that knowing yourself, working into self-mastery. We've done so many videos on, mastery, self-actualization. How do we really break the chain of self-sabotage? Well, the first thing is to know and understand who you are, how you work, how you show up, how you don't show up, and being okay with that all. Like, not being so secretive with your life that you hide from the world, right? Because you're afraid that somebody's going to say something to you, or you're going to be criticized, or, there's always going to be somebody out there who doesn't agree with who you are. Who cares? Who cares? Pay them no attention. Do not create an energy leak with them. Okay, so I hope that this helps you in self-sabotaging practices. We're really being led energy-wise, consciously to overcome these sort of practices, these behaviors that we've created patterns around. So self-sabotage is in 2024. It's either going to get really, really vivid for you, which gives you the opportunity, right? The opportunity to overcome it so that you can move into abundances, so that you can move into self-care, self-love, overcoming the resilience or the resistances of your success. Like, you being successful should be your number one goal in 2024. Success. Maybe that's a trigger. Maybe that word is a trigger because you haven't felt like you've achieved that before, or you've achieved it and then you lost it. Like, it's all about you holding the energy of what you really desire. And it's okay to change what you desire, but then be ready to hold the energy of what your new desire is. Not comparing yourself. Like, that's the number one thing to overcoming any kind of sabotaging practice. Do not compare yourself to anyone else in the world. Let your focus, your mission, your purpose be the only goal. Let that be your goal. So tell us what your goals are. What is it that you want to achieve in 2024? It's going to be an amazing year. So I want to know, like, what are you going to do to move deeper into the abundances of the universe? Because that's what we live in. We live in all the abundances. We don't live in lack. We don't live in lack any longer. That's the old days. That was 2023. 2024 is about success, honestly. So I hope that you've enjoyed this. Please like, share, and subscribe. And leave us a message. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you for joining, and have the most amazing day.
Thank you for being with us today. To find out more about Angela, visit her website at www.angelablaha.com.